yeah, and inviting all people to join these calls and to follow this process.
Yeah, and that's totally understandable. Hmm. Thanks for sharing.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Well, welcome everybody. I guess we can get started now. We're just waiting for a few people to jump in. So I guess where we left off was some discussion on Sunday, and of course, I will drop in the channel again, or the parameters channel. I'm dropping in the forum post, which is where we've been tracking everything. So today, our intention or goal in meeting is to develop some categories for the praise so that we can filter the data and maybe do some network mapping on that. And then Shawn had also been interested or maybe already working on some network graphs. So I don't know if you have anything to share. But I guess, does anybody else have any kind of agenda points? But I think everyone is pretty like focused on this being a work session to document or to draft categories and then do some modeling work around that. So I don't know, Octopus and Shawn, if before we start you have any other thoughts or anything that you guys want to include in this session today. And then if we can establish where we can all do note taking or draft these categories in what document.
Thanks, Jess. Yeah, that's a good approach. I agree. And if everyone can find their way to the forum post, then from there you can see the hackmd file. The forum post
You can
is...
drop the hackmd direct. I dropped it in the parameters channel. I dropped the forum post and then I'm putting the direct hackmd link, which I understand we can all like real time take notes like Google Drive, and it shouldn't be a problem. If you have a hackmd account, it takes 2 minutes to sign up. I can help note take as well, Shawn.
Yeah, and I'm just gonna also put the GitHub link right at the top of the hackmd.
Before we get started on hacking, I was wondering if you would be willing to have a short discussion about how you envision the data structure and the workflow. I guess let me just tell you what I was thinking. I was uncertain if it would be better to take each praise instance, which will have multiple keywords, and I don't know, is it okay to start by talking about this?
Totally okay.
Okay,
I think we need to. Oh, sorry.
Each praise instance have multiple keywords, and just as a technical thing, I wasn't sure if it made more sense to create multiple columns like keyword 1, keyword 2, keyword 3, keyword 4 in each row, or to make to split out each praise instance into multiple rows, one for each keyword. And I was wondering if you had a thought on that. I was torn, or if there was a different structure.
Let me just make sure I got it. So you say, okay, we have this data point of reason to dish praise, right? Where people just put in their own words why they dish praise, and in these description we might find keywords that are included, or is this already an interpretation, these keywords?
No, so I mean, I guess if Shawn already has a process in mind for how he plans to proceed, I was just wondering what the process was.
Yeah.
Because he has more experience with natural
I think I can see what Octopus is saying. So it's a very technical point. So it's like literally how do we do we add okay, so let's say we have 7 categories. Do we make 7? So it's the encoding. It's like the column encoding of the categories, right? Is what you're asking. This is like a hardcore data science. This always comes up, how to encode a categorical variables essentially, because it could be a type. It could be a single.
It's a technical question, but I also think it is important.
It is very important. Yeah. It's just I like that the pattern has come up. I can see it clearly because I've faced this same issue so many times. So we could have a single call.
Wait. Oh, sorry, Shawn. Are you recording or
Yeah, I'm recording.
should I? Oh, okay. Thanks.
Yeah, so we could have a single column that is like the type of praise. So we could say each praise falls into one bucket, one of 7 buckets. In that case, we have a single column that takes on a value. You can imagine this in like if you're filling out a survey that's going to populate a database, it'd be like a drop down. You know, there's a drop down menu and you click one option. And that's going to populate the database with one option out of the categories. Otherwise, we could say that a praise instance can be bucketed into any number of categories. So it could be in 2, 3, or 4 categories, or all 7. And the way to do this, the naive way that would be intuitive, you'd have a column and it would be a list, right? So you'd have a field that is a list of categories, but that's really unfriendly for like data science algorithms, because you just can't have a list in a column. So you'd have to make a new column for each category type, and you'd just do a binary encoding. So if it is a tweet praise, then there'd be a 1 in the tweet column, otherwise there'd be a 0. So I think the decision to be made is can a praise, if we're bucketing praises, can a praise live in multiple buckets or only one?
So a thought that I had was, instead of doing straight Onehot encoding, what if we did weighted Onehot encoding, so that if something came into 3 different buckets, it got 0.33 in each bucket. Does that seem reasonable? I don't know if that's an approach that you would agree with.
I wonder if we could take 1 or 2 examples to get a better feeling, because I would love to see some examples, and then also how the praise, the people who weighted praise interpreted the result, so that we get an impression on, is it 1 bucket, is it several buckets, what are reasonable buckets?
I guess too, it's as Zargamoy says, goals over processes. So what is our goal? We want to group the praise into categories. So does it make sense to just have them counted once, or what would be like the goal or outcome difference in having them grouped in multiple buckets? And also, I think it's fairly clear with the praise that they go in 1 bucket. So I guess maybe even looking at what categories and would be maybe the hard part as well, or maybe not. And maybe it'll be pretty clear, that it just goes in 1 bucket and that's it. And what would be like the purpose, I guess, in having multiple buckets that you think outcome-wise that wouldn't be represented, or why would it be important to do it that way?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. Or let's review the goals. So from my perspective, the goal is to find out what kind of contributions have been valued overall, and what kind of relevant contributions to TE are we missing here to have this picture. So contributions, and then secondary, how are categories weighted? So do we see some over or undervaluation of contributions? These 2 goals from my side.
I'm taking notes on the screen. I don't know if you can see, but let me know if that accurately. So what kind of contributions have been valued? Are they quote unquote under or overvalued? And is there any value not represented in the data that maybe we should reflect on? Is that accurate, or does anyone have anything to add to that? That's a consideration.
Yeah, I think buckets are useful in that we can more, we have more levers to contain things like praise inflation in one area doesn't have to bleed over to all of the other buckets. If there are, because each group that, or each channel that we use praise in probably has very different like praise characteristics. Like for example, the praise in the CAD channel or some of the token engineering initiatives probably get 1 to 10 praises compared to in TEC meetings there are dozens or hundreds of praises. So having different buckets for different work, I think would allow us to more easily look at a high level and say, what do we want to prioritize as a community? Okay, it's 20% of the praise goes to TE initiatives, 30% goes to builder initiatives, 40% goes to, we can kind of bucket it out and be much more cognizant of where we are prioritizing rather than, we're looking back on this data now, and since we don't have buckets, it's very difficult to determine what those tokens went out to do. And of course, I think we're going kind of backwards and doing this natural language processing to kind of roughly lump into buckets. But if we decide that sort of a priori and move forward with those buckets, I think it'll just give us a lot more insight into what we are rewarding in the community, and we can adjust those more easily without it getting into this individual or that individual. It's just the type of work we are prioritizing, and the individuals fall into those types of work based on where they work. So it's less of a personal issue and more of a, what large scale initiatives are we trying to reward and prioritize in this?
I think there's also another metric to look into, that is how many times something was praised. So that also gives information about how visible certain certain contributions were versus how not so visible others were, and also about what type of things certain community members value rather than others.
Okay, so I'm hearing two more goals then. Examining praise inflation and examining multiplicity, I guess, or like how many times an action was praised. So yeah, that sounds like a lofty bit, and so I'm kind of just trying to group here. So like our goals, and maybe that helps to guide the process and your discussion, Shawn and Andrew, on the buckets, and then we also have to develop the buckets or the categories. So since you guys are doing the work and know what it takes to do these things, where shall we start?
I think the best place to start, now that we know the priorities and the goals, and we've fleshed out this quite a bit, the directions that we want to go, I think it'd be nice to put names to sections. So have people volunteer on any particular piece that they want to maybe champion or lead or expand. And it doesn't have to be like right here in the Jupyter Notebook with the data frame. It can be just expanding the notes and fleshing out, from a domain expertise perspective, like all of us have a different perspective in this, right? We've been operating in the community, or we have the token engineering background. We've been thinking about these things for years. So on the documentation side, anything that can be fleshed out, and to translate this, it's like anything that can be stated as a math statement can be visualized and modeled from in the data science environment. So it doesn't have to be like, a plus b squared equals x or whatever. But if you say something and in like a word problem format, and you can tell that the words are representing quantities or things that change over time or something like this, those statements can be modeled and visualized. So
and I also, Shawn, could I add, I think it would be helpful to me to have very specific questions. Like, if people want to know what is the average impact hour per tweet, I can answer that. I can't answer is tweeting overvalued. You know what I'm saying? So, sort of questions.
But I guess,
More-
for undervalue, overvalue, I guess this is the first step what you've mentioned. What's the average impact hour resulting in a tweet? And compare this to another type of contribution. And then, of course, it's a community's decision if this is overvaluing or undervaluing a certain type.
So, but just like, I think that more specific questions might be helpful to me personally. I do not know if John agrees.
Yeah, I agree. There's a really good one that came out of the discussions. It's like, because it's super quantified. I think Griff kind of asked this, but it came up from a few different people. Is, can we actually sum up all of the payments that were made to people, who got paid, and then compare that directly, equate that with the number of impact hours that were discounted, and then if you take a range of sort of outcomes from the, and I'm blanking a little bit on exactly what this connection would be, but I think it can be made based on the outcomes of the hatch. You can essentially assign a dollar value. You can reverse engineer a dollar value to an impact hour, right? Oh, of course you can. Yeah, because it's going to be equivalent to some number of wrapped XDAI. So you can have a spectrum of price, and you could equate and have an equation of total payments made to total value of impact hours deducted. And I don't think that would be too. That would be like a 5-step process. It wouldn't be too big of a.
You have the payment data, because I think that number you can see it in the dashboard, right, with rage quit hours. Do you have the payments data, or would we need to get that?
It's in the worksheets, because there's there's a row for deductions made. So whenever someone has something deducted, if for someone who's on a recurring payment, it's 85% deduction. So we can actually just multiply that to the praise that they were given, or the inverse of that. Or it'd be 1 minus.
If that's something that's only 5 steps, or it's not so crazy hard, I do think it would be interesting, because I think that's been one point of contention or kind of debate or discussion, is that it's somewhere around 8 times, but we don't have an actual number. It's I think around 8 times the equivalent value. So is that something that you want to start on, and then maybe we can get into, while you work on that, we could maybe chat a bit about buckets, categories, or coming up with some specific questions or praise that we want to ask for Octopus to look at, average praise for certain actions, or dig through the data a bit to develop some of those questions.
So I think we should think a little bit about the horizon of this project and timelines. I saw that Livia brought this up yesterday in the chat. I think it's important just to manage expectations. So something like this, what I mentioned, equating deductions versus payments. It's something that has a linear series of steps, so it's doable, but it's still going to take time. I think there's even some data filtering that has to be done to find the deduction rows in that worksheet. So even something like that might take a data scientist a couple hours, a few hours, sometimes even a day if they get stuck. So I think the best approach here is to balance the priorities and our goals of what we want to establish from this data, and reusing the bucket term, but bucket that into specific challenges, data science challenges. And I think I listed 12 of them. I think we'll come up with kind of 2 or 3 that are quite high priority and the community would like to see. Like one is this bucketing thing. And I think each of these challenges, hopefully we can sort of assign someone to champion it, and we can have some time, like a week or 2 weeks, to go through this with feedback from the community. So I think we should do, if we can do this session recurring, this Tuesday session and the Sunday session, and then have a little bit of async in between, then we can have some significant updates on these things going forward. Because what I think I'm just going to jump into the categorization right away while you guys talk about it. And Jess, you just write notes here, and there could be some brainstorming and flowing. And I think meanwhile, I'm just going to go in the background and start going for it and doing the first steps in establishing that categorization. But
Shawn, Shawn, I'm very sorry. I'm not trying to kick a hornet's nest, but the only thing I was hoping for was that you would just give like an outline of the workflow you intended to pursue before we started.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Like that was the original question I was trying to ask a few minutes ago. Is like, what process are you planning to use? Just so I'm kind of not shocked.
This is good. Yeah. I'll verbalize my thinking process a little bit here. So I'll just jump into that, and Jess, you might have a couple comments on what I said, but or anyone else. But I'll address this also. So I'm coming in here for the categorization of the reasons for dishing. And my process with data science is very explorative. It's usually one little step at a time to gain a small insight into the data, or have an idea of how to kind of upregulate the data or just enrich it so that it's getting closer and closer to my goal. It's very much like solving a complex math problem. Like you can't just do it all at once, right? But maybe you can refine the math statement so it's just a little bit simpler, or it's just a little bit closer to what you want. And you keep exploring in that direction until you get somewhere significant. So the first thing I did, I opened this data, and there's no idea in my head of how I'm going to do this. I know I can do it. I've done similar stuff before, but it's not coming back to me right away. But first thing you got to do is look at the data. What do we have in front of us? So I open up the data and I say, okay, I want to get a bit of a deeper sense of this. So I print out specifically the column reason for dishing, and I look at the first 20 rows, and I see what we have in front of us here. And right away what's popping out is like keywords. Okay, so hosting, for example, like these kind of verbs. I'm thinking about what are the verbs here? Attending, hosting, taking care. Oh, so here's Twitter, right? So keywords are jumping out. So I'm thinking, okay, how can I look at the keywords to start to get a sense of how we might, because there's always sophisticated methods that you can use. We can use unsupervised AI to do a spatial embedding, but there's always simple methods you can use as well. So we could just make a list of keywords. So I'm thinking about making a list of keywords, and then we can simply separate this data by those keywords. So the first thing that I was going to jump in on is making a word count. So let's see what the most occurring words are in all of praise, and I think that'll be kind of interesting to see, and then it can guide our the keywords that we want to pick out. And then also, as everyone else on this call, the community is sort of like fleshing out ideas, and Jess is taking notes. That's just ringing in my ear and leading to some inspiration on where this exploratory data analysis will go as well. So that was my thinking process. Kind of abstract, maybe. It's not exactly like how are we going to encode the columns, but I tend to kind of cross bridges when I come to them, sort of thing.
Okay. Thank you, Frank.
Yeah. So is there any other comments on that?
I wonder how we can make it let's say, a collaborative thing, so that we can all contribute to formulating the categories. I mean, we can either deduct from the existing or come up with categories first and then do a matching. What do you think is best?
I also have been thinking about this, I guess, too. I've also debated the approach in like categories of, do we just kind of pull arbitrarily out of our minds? Some people have more experience than others, or I mean, we have the sheet here and I've seen some of the things, but I think it's hard to nail down to like a key word. I mean, it's just a little more, it's not as simple as just make buckets. I think it could be interesting, Shawn, to see.
Just as an idea. So, of course, I think it's one approach would be that we take a brainstorming and just collect a list with contributions from everyone, what buckets we think should be there beyond the data, with just what we think are contributions overall. To also, this helps us in finding out then finally if some contributions seem to be relevant but are not covered via dishing praise. How about this? This is one idea.
Yeah, that sounds good. I was going to say also, I think, Shawn, it could be interesting to see most frequently occurring keywords, because I think that will actually tell us a lot about what has been praised most frequently and the types of actions.
I had a question. I had a question, or maybe it's an idea. I don't know. So I let Octopus and Shawn and Angela figure it out. But basically, it's like I'm seeing it from a perspective like there are certain work streams. I mean, there's certain the working groups and there's certain work being done and some of these actions they basically just fall into one of these by default or not, and they are just actions that are not necessarily 100% related or included into one of these groups. So I don't know, for me it's a way of just trying to think about what is the work that's visible and out there and being showcased, and are there invisible work streams in one sense or another. So just thinking about that, but having like a category with, I don't know, it may be too complex to think about work streams and different types under those.
Yeah, I think Angela's suggestion covers that, because if we brainstorm a list together of what are contributions that we all think are happening, and then when we match with the data, if there is one of those contributions that didn't get rewarded through praise, then we'll see that there is that disparity there. So I really like that idea, Angela, to make a list together and then use that to track. And using the keywords as well.
I think it doesn't have to be cover the entire session. I think we need 5 minutes of individual brainstorming and then throwing it into one list. So that's doable.
So yeah, if anybody wants to start brainstorming or just throw some out, I am taking notes here. I already put like filter by working group could be an interesting bucket. And how we determine that would be like maybe some keywords or phrases of work as examples.
Should we take just 5 minutes of everybody quietly, individually collects his or her own list, and then we get together again and collect this in one?
Sure.
Is that okay? Okay. I'll be back.
I'll put 5 minutes on the clock.
Great. And everyone, just collect your what are contributions, types of contributions, and maybe examples we should take a look at.
And I'll drop this TEC praise quant Excel doc if anyone needs some ideas in the parameters channel, just to look at like what kinds of things were praised over the months to get some juices flowing.
Cool.
I will employ the Groovy bot. Wow, that 5 minutes went by fast. Do we need 2 more minutes, or how's everybody doing with their categories and keywords? Anyone? Everyone's mesmerized by the Guru bot?
Fine.
Do you need 2 more minutes, or should we?
I'm good to go.
You have to go? Oh, you're ready to talk about it?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't need more time. So.
Okay, great. Somebody said they're not getting my share screen, so. Okay, so yeah, I started specifically with working groups to list out the working groups and keywords, but if anyone wants to start.
Should we share a screen so that we look at the same list together?
Sure.
Happy to take notes. It's just.
Oh, is there a list we were supposed to add everything?
I would just go add it to the HackMD.
Okay.
Yeah, here I'm on the HackMD taking notes.
Okay, great.
But also, I shared the link in the parameters channel if anybody wants to jump in and support also.
It's just. All right, who wants to start sharing notes? Livy.
Oops, I thought I was unmuted.
So Jess,
Yeah,
should I take the notes or you? Just the list. Create a list.
I'm happy to take notes if
That's
you
correct.
want to lead the discussions and calling on people. Is that cool?
Maybe you can share your screen so that we can look at it together. That helps, I guess.
Can you see? Can you see my screen?
Oh, not yet. I'm still watching Shawn.
Okay, I'll try to share again. Okay, I should be sharing now.
Okay, right. Good, Livy. What's your list? Let us know.
Okay, so some of the categories I thought is developing models and tools, giving technical support to fix bugs, providing token engineering education, providing.
Maybe this is that's super cool. Just for a moment. What do you mean with models and tools?
I think all of the token engineering work of like developing software models that can be open sourced and used by multiple communities. Technical tools of all sorts, like voting tools, simulation tools.
So the one refers to the tools, and software probably relates to things like CAD. So this is infrastructure, and models is rather particular models like conviction voting or balancer pools. So tools that are open source and available to anyone for using them and play with. Okay. Good.
Yeah, so developing and also improving these tools. And then, just technical support, token engineering education. So like the TE Academy, CAD EDU, education and onboarding to the token engineering commons, research work. I think this is broad, but research of like everything that we are doing in general in the ecosystem of TEC. Narrative and strategy. So I don't know how to specify that.
It's about the discipline token engineering, or is it about TE Commons?
I think like strategizing how, like, for example, we're all trying to advance the field of token engineering, and I think there are multiple strategies to do so. And the TEC has a few strategies, and other projects have also other strategies. So for all of them to be encompassed.
Okay. Not sure, just a comment. I think it would be good to have one item and not to try to make summaries of items, but rather to have explicitly separated, for example, narrative and strategy TE comments and narrative and strategy for the discipline or narrative and strategy for any whatever. So, because I assume that this will be relevant.
So perhaps two buckets, one for TE and one for TEC, because I think they are slightly different.
Mm-hmm. Anything else?
Then participation, care work, and proactive.
Yep, great.
And proactivity and problem solving.
And participation and care work again relates to TE comments.
I would say all of the ones I suggested could be for both.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll pass to Jeff.
I don't actually
have a list, so I'm going to pass.
Juan?
Thanks. Well, I have some words, but maybe you can help me like group them.
Mm-hmm.
I thought of the cultural build. There was a lot of contributions around it, and yeah, that refers to a lot of small activities. Leadership. I think that's really great. Leadership of different projects. Onboarding. Presence. Research. Things related to the working groups. Direct interaction between members, because there was like the calls, but there were also like hack sessions that members did on their own. Developing tools and models, and Ostrom's principles. Yeah.
Just a question. Can I ask you a question? What do you mean by presence? You mean like participation, or you mean like
Yeah, that is I thought of it like related to calls, but yeah, there's like a lot of presence that is not in calls. So and overall presence in the T space. So like I was thinking of it like in a broad scope, like presence. Maybe I remember there was a praise for Simone de la Rouvière for bonding curves, and I remember that was like super heavily praised, and it was just one praise, but it was like, yeah, this thing that has been done in the like made so much impact.
we say like founding work, like foundational work, because there's technical infrastructure, but there was kind of like these founding token engineers who were part of like laying the foundational like ideas for the discipline. So could we call that like foundational work of the discipline, or I'm just trying to get a little specific so we can know.
Yeah, I think that's great, and also like big praises for those foundational works, like the transdisciplinary flower, that I think that was also heavily praised to some foundational pioneers of the field. I will pass to Octopus.
Sorry, I did not generate a list. I've just been.
I can't hear Octopus. You?
Oh, he said he couldn't generate a list because he's working on some things. So do we want to pass to Pab or ViViV? Did you guys have a list?
I have a list, but I'm not exactly sure how to group it. But here's like the overview of what I'm thinking. One is content creation for token engineering commons, which includes making blogs, posts, and guides, which help the community uh, to participate in the process. And it also includes graphics that we use on our, say, Twitter or in blog posts. The second category is education, which is labs and whatever the work they're doing. I think this also includes the hosting the Hatch Param debates and maybe making forum posts that educate people about specific things like how the posts for the Hatch were made. Next is the token engineering work for the TEC, which is like the real basis on top of which we are trying to build other technology in the TEC. Next is external tools for the TEC, which are not exactly essential for the TEC, but we use them and people get praised for making them. So this might contain things like automations or the bridge bot or praise bot or the development on the TEC source code collection bots, stuff like that. Next would be marketing and strategy for comms. Whatever participation that is going on in order to convey what is going to go to the socials. Then there is research of whatever's going on the TEC. I'm not sure if this would also include analysis of like internal audits from transparency. Maybe that also comes under this. Another one is legal consultants and strategies over how we're framing stuff and whatever the legal group does. And I think that's pretty much it. Yeah, and conflict management and internal governance. Whatever work the gravity does to maintain the social layer of the DEC. And this is like pretty much what I've thought of. I'm not sure how exactly they will be grouped though.
Sure, that's great. Does anybody have any questions or reflections about ViViV's? And I'm kind of grouping in categories when I'm hearing patterns. I hope that's okay with everybody. Okay,
Great.
Pab, did you have a list you want to share? If not, that's okay. Okay. Well, I guess I'll share mine quickly. I kind of started thinking about all the categories and then just thought that that could actually be reflected pretty well in working groups. So I started this list. I was trying to remember all the working groups. I think I got them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 11. I'll go back. I was looking at the Discord to look at all the working groups, and I was just trying to come up with keywords because I was noticing as well, like looking at this praise data, that there's like a lot of recurring words that are often used. So yeah, I guess it would be cool if we can now then, we have like two lists. We have the brainstorm list, and then I made this working groups list with keywords. So I guess what we can try to do is synthesize a bit our like main list, or we could filter some of this brainstorm list under working groups and then keep whatever is not represented by TEC working groups as like separate categories. However you all think is best, but maybe kind of like synthesize this a bit and find patterns and groupings, and then maybe brainstorm a little bit around keywords for these actions or working groups. What do you think?
Can I add two more that I just thought of? just transparency and communications.
Is it okay that those are represented by, like, not necessarily working groups, but these are like, the working groups are a lot of the work that's represented. So in that case, I have transparency here and also comms. And then also under the brainstorm list, we had narrative and strategy, within which I added content creation, blogs, comms, graphics, marketing, all of the suggestions from 5IV. And then I have this like ×2, which was representing that we have that work for TEC, and then we have that work for the larger TE discipline.
Okay, cool.
Is that okay, Livy?
Thanks.
I just wanted to add some more. And this, of course, refers to a lot of the work that has been doing outside of TE Commons. And yeah, probably we can, this is a separate step, I guess, to see if this has ever been the plan to reflect this with praise or not. I can't remember what we discussed in August, and certainly there have been changes along the way. But yeah, let me just share it. So co-learning or peer learning, like hacking sessions with Danilo, the TEC co-lab. These are certainly valuable contributions. Then PE research, we had this. Here I'm referring to fundamental research that has been done in the token engineering sector overall. Flower is one of it, and other primitives. Then also make these primitives accessible. So I'm thinking of articles or blog posts, Lisa's work to distribute the knowledge about these primitives. Then building models that are available and accessible, open source. So CAD models or other models. Also token spice, TANAS, JavaScript implementation, and then certainly 3 steps: building these model, open source these model, provide documentation, and make this work accessible, for example, in CAD community calls. Then community build from 0, meetups, calls, Discord channels, Twitter, YouTube. Then the anti-education angle, where again we had hacking CAD models with Danilo, 2 research groups, 3 cohorts of ecosystem value flows, I think around 12 introductory sessions with 400 participants to token engineering. So this is also evangelizing and telling the crypto sector about token engineering. And all these educational initiatives require organizing, spreading the word, marketing, getting participants on board, creating the content, make this content accessible. So the entire process of educational work from start, how to design education, to outreach, to hosting sessions, and then gather people around follow-up activities. Just this is an overview on what was happening left and right of TEC Commons. And yeah, I think just for the sake of is this having a most comprehensive list.
Yeah, I think this is great. There's a lot of patterns here. you going to say something? I'm not sure. Maybe I heard somebody else. So yeah, I see a lot of patterns here. So I think like there's kind of infrastructure and tooling, education, and onboarding, which again, these are like kind of, there's a bunch in TE and there's a bunch in TEC. And then I think community building could go under communications and or soft gov if we wanted to group it that way, or we can leave it. And then research, narrative and strategy, participation, cultural build contributions, which maybe we could group leadership into, working groups, interactions between members, like working sessions was mentioned a couple of times, and then foundational work of the discipline. And then I put a category for attending meetings, like that's, I guess, participation. We should go under the participation stream, which again, we kind of have TE and TEC represented. So yeah, I guess thinking now of, there are these, this is pretty good. I think maybe we could synthesize a bit further. I'm thinking as far as like the data work, that keywords now would be helpful underneath these categories. So for me, doing working groups, that represents like the TEC things pretty well, and that's like easier to come up with language and keywords for. But maybe this larger list, should we synthesize a bit further, or what do you guys think for?
Probably, can we now switch to a spreadsheet, and we keep the HackMD in front of us, and use a spreadsheet now to derive the categories, and then assign keywords or potential keyword formulations.
Yeah, and I was just thinking of starting with TEC by like working groups, because I feel like the working groups encompass all of these things, especially for TEC. And I think the keywords are easier to pull for that. And then for the TE side, I think we'll have to dig a little bit more. Feel free to anyone to counter that, or...
I just wanted to say that I have to jump, but I am super happy about the work that is being done, and that I want to keep participating in this. But I have to go, so thank you, and continue your excellent work.
Thanks, Juan.
Thanks, Juan. See you later.
It looks like Octopus probably had to go too at some point. Anyway, hello, Meahwhile.
Hey there.
Hey, we're in the middle of building out some categories and keywords to be able to do some data analysis on what kind of contributions and actions have been praised, how have they been valued or not valued, or how have they been represented. So we're trying to look at like some categories and keywords in order to do that work. So we've developed this brainstorm list here, which we're trying to maybe further synthesize a little bit, and then also looking at how to come up with some keywords for actions. So in the parameters channel, some people had to leave. In the parameters channel, we have a link to this praise quant doc, which shows like all the different things that were praised. So I guess what we're going to try to do is pull out some language that we can use in the search parameters. Just so you
Basically,
know,
we're trying. Okay, thanks. You're trying to sort of see any patterns and assign categories based on that.
Exactly. Yeah. So what do you think, Ange?
I can't hear you anymore. Sorry.
Oh no. Okay, I'll refresh. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I was just. Can you see my screen too?
Nope.
Oh, darn.
Okay. Now. Okay.
So yeah, we. What should we do next? I feel like TEC is much easier to look at by working groups and the keywords, and I already started doing some of this, like looking through and pulling out keywords. So should we keep going on that, or do you want to synthesize this brainstorm list further and try to group that out?
Yes. So let me. I have. I don't know if you can see my screen. I just added the working groups of TEC to a spreadsheet. Can you see it? Can you hear me still? Hello? Okay.
Can hear you, yeah.
Oh, sorry, yeah, I can hear you. I was muted. I can hear you and see your screen.
Okay, so these are the working groups you've added to the HackMD. I think they are complete, or are we missing any working group? 11 groups?
I'm gonna double check.
Okay.
I'm double checking. We have Omega, Stewards Labs, Transparency. Yeah, that should be right.
Okay. Now
and
let's
Hatch Outreach, yes, and onboarding.
Okay. Let's check the HackMD, everyone, and let's see if we are missing something here in the working groups. So, comms, is there anything that is not covered from our brainstorming? Should I add anything here?
I am looking. I guess we could add all of the words for all of the social platforms.
Okay.
And if you want to share, if you can share that doc with me, I can also help you. If you can open up the sharing for this doc and then drop it in the parameters channel, I can help you. But yeah, I'm thinking like, Discord, YouTube, Telegram, like just all of the...
Is it, should I take it as keywords? Probably is a good idea. YouTube, anything else? Just let me know. I'll type it.
Discord, Telegram, YouTube. I have a list somewhere. Let me look.
Look it up. In the
maybe the forum.
Forum, yeah.
Or discourse. Yeah, it seems crazy that we're doing this kind of backwards now.
Okay.
Shawn, are we doing this properly? Like, is this a good way?
Yeah, this is great, guys.
Okay.
Yeah, you guys keep going. Just listening.
I just wanted to make sure we're...
I've actually discovered things that need to be, about the process of doing this just from listening, so it's great.
Okay, so we've got Discord, Medium, GitHub, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, forum, discourse, website. Those are the list of the platforms.
But is this still in the bucket of comms? Because I think GitHub is probably not comms.
Well, GitHub is probably not. Sorry, I just have that as we set up that platform. But no, that can go under Common Swarm and Tech Dev. Well, actually, GitHub could be any one of these working groups because, yes, that one might be like an outlier because everybody uses it. Maybe outlier terms like.
I just take this for the moment.
Yeah, everybody does also project management on GitHub, so.
Is project management part of the working groups? Or
it's kind of like the stewards. It's kind of like stewards working group does that.
This is just a random collection of keywords. No problem. We might edit it later on. So is there Now, I just wanted to go back, everyone, to the HackMD, because we collected a range of activities, but maybe we are missing some of them in this working groups. What about intro
Yes,
sessions?
I feel like if we group it as like TEC working groups, and then we have another group for like TE discipline, and under TE discipline, we can have infrastructure, and under that, that whole description I did there, and then we have like education, onboarding, and under that we have, you know, these different. The descriptions are not necessarily the keywords as well.
Of course.
And they may not be represented in the praise anyway, as much as we might like. So, yeah.
Let's let them step by step. So there's no way around it. We have to go through the list. Okay, you need to help me. I'm typing.
Oh, you're typing? Oh, I'm in HackMD. Okay. I'd say, let's break it down in category, infrastructure, education. You want keywords or descriptions? Because
Both. It's just throw it.
okay, just throw it. Technical infrastructure includes. I mean, it'd be easier to copy and paste, I think, for the descriptions, and then pick out the keywords.
I think, yeah, we can just continue, or you can copy paste. It's just, I think the list is a little bit, let's say, we might have duplicates, we might have overlaps, and therefore we should have this step of, okay, reviewing the list and then digest if this should be one or the other category. If we, for example, have technical infrastructure, this is developing software models. It's certainly TE discipline, right? And this is open source models.
There's also like some software models and technical tools. Do we want to lump it together, TEC and TE, or are we separating that out?
Let's take both. This would be one case where we might have two categories
Both
for
together.
one contribution.
Okay.
So
Okay.
this would be create open source models for TEC.
But I'm even thinking like, for me, open source models is like, I don't think we need so many smaller buckets. I would say like technical infrastructure is the big bucket. And under that, we have developing software models, technical tools, CAD models,
And should
etc.
we have separate, if you say under that, this would be rather a description, or should it be different types of contributions?
I guess it's description / types. It's kind of both. And then we have the keywords.
Okay, then please repeat.
It's kind of like a description, but the description is helpful to have examples. So I think it's kind of serving for, you know.
Yeah. Okay. Then just, can you repeat technical infrastructure? What falls under technical infrastructure?
Developing software, models and technical tools. And then here's where we get into like TEC tech, like the apps and dApps that are being developed for TEC, they could be generalized later on. And they could become, you know, they are open source. So I think open source is actually good that you wrote that there. And then there's like TE primitives, there's token spice, CAD models, documentation. I think CAD community calls would go under like community building.
Slow.
Oh,
Slower.
slow out. Do you want to share the doc with me? I feel like maybe
Hey, I just realized
I can help.
we can compute which day of the week each praise was given on. That might help a lot with working groups.
Yeah. So that by knowing the date, you can easier decide on which working group this was. Yeah, makes sense. Yes. I feel like you want to take over typing. I was hoping you just because you did so many
Just
of
talk.
the
No,
sessions.
I'm eating lunch now, so
input.
now I will just talk.
Okay, you can't type anymore. All right.
You're saved from my control freakness. Okay, where are we?
Let's move on.
Frameworks and tools.
We'll
Let's
have a
move
list.
on.
Yeah. Next.
Okay. Praise bots. I don't know where we want to put that. Tech support, praise bots, like
Praise bots.
even source cred development. Like this is work that was done in the TEC, but can be actually useful for TE discipline or wider community.
This is building blocks.
I think the bots etc. come under open source code, and I think even token law comes under that because they were not exactly centered around, like they were developed for the TEC, but like the praise bot was made for a lot of people. I think everyone uses the praise bots, so like maybe we can group that under open source code.
Yeah.
To me, it's all technical infrastructure.
Sure. I mean, it makes
Slash
sense.
open source code, yeah.
We can take a note. Let's see. Wait if open source to other use cases. This is, I guess, what you want to say.
We're getting pretty granular here.
Yeah. But I just want to capture it. Probably we can't go that deep in the analysis, but
also since we're referring to praise bots, maybe we can generalize that and say bots and automation. Like the bridge bot that we're using, etc., all can come under that one umbrella of bots and automations that we're using.
Yeah. Okay.
Let's see. Technical support.
What is technical support?
It supports the technical infrastructure. I don't know.
Is this
Dev support?
TEC or?
I don't know. Somebody said it. I don't know. People doing dev stuff. Dev stuff. Okay. Next. Big one. Education. And onboarding. Now, I think onboarding is one of those words that's like too broad. So maybe we just say education about like there's education about TE discipline and there's education about TEC, which feeds into TE discipline, but not necessarily all the work. So maybe we just keep it to TE education.
Here,
and discipline, like discipline education.
I wonder, yeah, that's great. I wonder, this hasn't been a working group, obviously, for TEC. So I remember the onboarding sessions, but obviously this, hedge outreach. Is this part of the education for TEC?
This group used to be called onboarding. Now it's called Hatcher Outreach, but yes, it is focused on TEC.
So should we take this as the category and then as an example, education?
I would.
No?
I think it's like TEC specific education. But yeah, I was more so wanting to get into, and what this list is more representative of is, okay, so for TEC side, there's like, I think TEC, we just keep it, the working groups will be easier. But for TE, this is where your peer learning, lab sessions, hacking sessions, Lisa writing a book, intro sessions. I mean, it's pretty obvious, I guess, for me, what TE education is right now.
I just try to reflect that in the list. Let me check if I added fundraising.
Oh, if that counts, then I get credit for running the last 3 Gitcoin grants. Well, me and a bunch of people.
You should. Yeah. Should I add it for TEC?
I guess so. I mean, I don't even know what we're going to do. I guess we're just going to add those funds to the common pool. There's not much there anyway, but yeah, for Common Stack, we raised for the whole ecosystem. Takes a lot of work that I don't think most people are aware of.
Exactly.
But I am now somewhat automating that process. Well, with a human. That's not me. We made templates out of everything.
Okay. What else? What's still missing? What is
okay? Let me go back to the list. Sorry.
Yeah.
Did you go to TE education? TE
yeah,
education.
I tried to add.
Oh, you already got that. Okay.
In my mind.
Okay, next, community building. TE community build. Meetups, platforms, channels. TEC is separate. This is TE community building.
Okay.
Which is, this is one of the most under-recognized things, I think, in the praise system. There's all the invisible work and just like all the million conversations that we all have to have. We could all just get universal basic praise for X amount for participating in this ecosystem and flooding our telegrams and discords.
Okay.
Next is research work. Which is, what qualifies as research?
TE research.
Yeah.
This includes creating key building blocks, writing papers.
Yeah, articles, research digests, academic papers that take 1 year to write. Yeah, anything to do with governance, TE, commons, DAOs. What else do people write about? I guess also like DAO to DAO collaboration.
Many of the things.
What else? In Luna Swarm, we modeled conviction voting, the Gitcoin research group.
Many of the things published by Block Science.
Oh, Block Science definitely, and like their work, which
Economic Lab.
Part of it they have contracts and pay, but part of it is open science. Like they donate a lot of work and time.
And again, for the discipline, just on a side note, I'm not sure for TE Commons, of course, this was relevant to differentiate between paid work and volunteer work. However, for TE research, I'm not sure if I differentiate. Perhaps it will be relevant once we look at what should be the conclusion from this analysis. So for example, for impact hours and receiving compensation, monetary compensation, probably it is relevant if research was created via volunteering or paid work. However, in contrast, for decision-making power, it doesn't make any difference for me if this was paid research or just for fun. It's either it is a relevant contribution or it is not. And so just on a side note, some thoughts on that. We don't have to make any decision on that now.
Yeah, I think people have different ideas, but that's a good point you brought up. Okay, next, narrative and strategy. I guess for TE discipline, because I feel like this is covered under comms for TEC. So this is like writing about TE as a discipline, like even, well, no, who's written about it? Narrative and strategy. I don't know, I guess this would be like ecosystem development for TE. Also, like, I guess that goes with community building, narrative, and strategy are somewhat linked, and maybe calling it ecosystem development as the head, the higher level category.
I'm thinking about, so we had a bunch of research, and some people called it cryptoeconomics, some called it consensus mechanisms, core research, and suddenly people called it token engineering and start to talk and explain what this new discipline is all about. So maybe this is narrative and strategy for token engineering, or at least narrative.
Yeah,
so
and also I guess like people writing books and maybe giving talks to institutions and. I would group community building and narrative and strategy all under ecosystem, TE ecosystem development.
Okay.
Okay, next. Okay. Participation, pair work. I guess TE discipline because, well, I guess there's one for each category.
Yeah.
And I think this kind of goes with ecosystem development. But I guess participation is the one to break out. Like care work, I would say, is part of ecosystem development, and then participation is both TEC and TE. Attending meetings, joining calls. I have some keywords for this.
Yeah, okay. So I have it.
It's pretty easy.
Yeah. And TE discipline and participation in TEC.
Yeah. Cultural build contributions. I guess this is like a lot of TEC work that is important for TE, like Ostrom's principles, conflict management, social fabric work, leadership.
Or where does it go to?
I mean, it's in SoftGov for sure. And then I think it's larger, like maybe it could be considered TE research around conflict transformation, Ostrom's principles. I think that would fit nicely under research.
Then in the discipline.
I think it goes in both. I think the TEC work that is applicable to the wider TE discipline as research.
Fine. So I can keep it here. Then, where to put it for TEC? Because I
Soft
can't
gov.
find
Soft gov.
Okay. Here. Okay.
Conflict resolution, transformation, gravity. We call it gravity work.
And there's a second bucket, gravity.
I guess
So
also yeah, those gravity could really kind of go under softgov. It's spun up out of softgov, so but it is its own working group, so it would be reflected in the praise. But
and then here we say cultural build / softgov.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Now we have I don't know. One said interactions between members. I think that's kind of participation and working sessions that are already represented. I don't know. Foundational. Okay, now we have TE. Last one. TE under TE is like this founding work of the discipline, like Simon DLR, bonding curves. Whoever made the crypto economic flower, was it Shebnam that actually made that? And like what else? Abby Tidcombe, she wrote a blog about augmented bonding curves. Who else? All of these people who have contributed to, you founding the community, and Luke having this very successful DAO and contributing, like all the Aragon people, like, who knows? We could go way, way back and wide with this.
This is TE research, creating building blocks, narratives, academic papers.
Yeah, maybe you could add it there. It's research. I mean, it was foundational work. Yeah.
Perhaps research and experiments.
Yeah, like people who did. There's like even the mathematical work that went into it, and I don't know. You could go pretty far and wide with this one, but I think there's some obvious standouts, and certainly not all of these people are captured because they're not part of this community, or they're not active, in the community. We tried to retroactively, reward them and bring them in to have this representation, but I think it's a lot of work to do more than what we've done to go hunting these people down. Please take these tokens. It's not that easy. Okay, and yeah, I think also if you look in the HackMD, I've got keywords started for all the working groups. But I think that we've gone through the list anyway.
Let me share the link and we can start copy paste keywords.
Okay, can I test my German? Would I say, kannst du mit mir freigeben? Oh no, I guess I'm missing the noun.
Ja, würde ich gerne, aber Discord macht nicht mit.
Gerne. Oh dear. Okay, never mind. I'm way off. Let me go to the channel.
So I'm back in.
Oh, and she's gone. Hello? Oh, she's back.
Yeah, so I just dropped the link to the spreadsheet in the channel parameters.
Okay, cool. How you going, Shawn?
Yeah, good. I got some simple. I just did a word count, so it's pretty interesting. I actually dropped just a little CSV in the Params channel. It's pretty neat to open up. You can see all the most common words that are used. The first one is commons, so seems like it worked. And yeah, now I'm going in for something a bit more sophisticated. I'm trying to do a spatial embedding using doc to vec. So it's a spatial embedding. So it takes words, or like this is inspired from word to vec, which takes words and embeds them into like a plane, like a two-dimensional plane. So you can say what's the distance between two different words. And then doc to vec actually takes structured language and embeds it. So we can embed a whole praise sentence and then see how they relate to each other. And then one of the main insights I've had through listening to this is my original thinking was that we're just going to take this text and be able to categorize the praise, but I'm realizing now that's kind of a silly thought, actually. Like this is way more rich data than just the text itself. And it really rings back to what Octopus was talking about in the beginning with how we do the encodings, because we're going to want to encode all of these columns, like who it was from and who it was to. Like there's a lot of structure in there. There's going to be different people involved in different working groups, and there's going to be different patterns emerging based on who it was from, who it was to, what's the language used, what server was it in, what day of the week was it on is going to be huge, what room was it in, and what was the score. This is super valuable information, the scores, the normalized scores, because this is it's kind of like feature engineering, we would call it in machine learning, because a person, a community member, a validator, actually sat down and they looked at this praise while it was fresh, so they probably had some context around it, and they thought about how meaningful it was, and they gave it a score. So that score holds a lot of information in it. Yeah, so I think if we actually... Now this takes a bit of work, but it's not too bad, but we can basically go through every single column and do what's called an encoding so that it's very like machine friendly. And then we can do an embedding, not just over the text, but over the entire data set. So we're using all the information available. And I think by doing that and having these high fidelity mappings that you guys are coming up with, I think there's a good chance we can do a good job and say, okay, what's the goal of the categories? Is it by working group or, any of these other ways that you guys are breaking these down right now? And if we use all the information available to do a clustering, there's probably a good chance that we can get a meaningful mapping into the categories.
This sounds very encouraging. Thank you, Shawn. I was just browsing through the wording, the list with words, and I thought, oh my God.
I know.
How can we map this
Yeah, I know.
to the categories? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad you're encouraged, Shawn, because I was just feeling like, oh my God, we're going into a wormhole that I don't want to go in, and I don't think I'm ever going to get out. And is this work even, is this pointless? Like, what am I doing?
It's those kinds of feelings that lead to that's how I was feeling too about 15 minutes ago. And then I realized, wait, we have way more information available to us actually, so yeah.
Wait, we just have like a couple of hundred people. If we can get them all to comb through this 9,000 praises and pull it all out, then...
I just wonder for the embeddings, Shawn, how what could be the process here? So this must be like, if a praise was dished at that time in this room and contains this keyword, it's category A. Something like this, or
I think so we can just I'm trying to. Oh yeah, you guys are probably screen sharing, maybe not. So I was watching you guys with the spreadsheet there a little bit ago, and so let's say we have. I'll just use the working groups as the example. I think that's the most concrete. So I think there were 12 working groups. So at a first crack, we could do our best to really set this data up so that it's good for a clustering algorithm to really find all the information available to use and make clusters. And we could say, okay, clustering algorithm, put the praise data into 12 clusters. And it would do that. It would best bucket this data into, each praise would go into one of 12 buckets. And then we could look at those buckets and say, well, do these at all resemble working groups? Like, is that the embedding that happened here? And we could, I think, for multiple reasons, it will be valuable to, like you said, I think Jess mentioned, manually label a lot of this praise data. It doesn't have to be all of it, but if we take 100 rows and label them as what working group they're part of or any other sort of labels we want to apply, then we can plot these things against each other. We can plot I'm sure you guys have seen this, like a clustering graph. We saw this from Jan in the Gitcoin research with the network embeddings. And so we can apply a color as the label that it's been given, and we can see where it sits in that embedding. And then we can superimpose the 100 examples that we manually labeled and just see, okay, based on the let's cluster the manual labels, and do they naturally have clusters that are associated with them? And it's going to be an iterative process, and but we just have, I think that's what I would do, like just see what are the best first results, kind of an optimistic approach, and then iterate based on how it turns out.
Shawn, could I add?
You're back.
I think the hand labeling, it would be really good if we could do it iteratively as well. Like hand label 100 and then let the algorithm run, and then have people check 200 that were labeled and see if it's accurate, and if it's not, then they tweak or know where to tweak if things are badly off.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, there's actually a really promising field. It's kind of new. I did my master's in data science in 2018, and it was a pretty new idea, but I think it's popular now. I'm trying to remember the exact technical term, but what comes to mind is like human in the loop training. So you train your algorithm, and you actually see where it performs. How did it make the biggest mistakes? If you can identify the biggest mistakes, and then just relabel a couple of those examples that represent the things it got wrong, and then retrain it, and then see what it. I think it's called like active learning or something along these lines. But yeah, this human in the loop, iterative feedback, train the algorithm, see the results, and then kind of use the minimal effort required to help it out a bit more, and retrain it, and see how much better it can improve from there. It's a whole emerging field. It's pretty interesting.
From a workflow perspective, it would require people with a lot of expertise to make the commitment to do some pretty low-level things.
We're already doing it. No worries about that. We can recruit some more.
Human in the loop, no problem for Jess. Right.
Human in the loop, not ideal, but that's what we're doing. So we can recruit a few more hands on deck to make quicker work of it, though. Thank you, everyone. So yeah, we have 15 minutes left. What else can we do to make this time valuable? Or we can, end early. We don't have to take up the whole time. And maybe Sunday our mission is do these 100 praise thingies and try to train our algorithm.
I was just thinking of this. Could we, I don't know, if 4 people take 50 praised examples and assign categories, the one from the spreadsheet, then we could use this as the fundamental to see what results we can get from.
Yeah, I feel like too, we already do this, like we manually, the last praise quant that I participated in, we manually quantified 2,100 praises. So certainly, maybe we can ask Griff, hey Griff, in the next praise quant, as people go through, it will be much easier and more efficient if they just label as they go, at least, a couple of hundred. And if not, I mean, yeah, it doesn't take so long if 4 or 5 of us, and generally the Sunday calls have been quite busy and with people who are not that technical that have done praise quant, like me. So I think if we had 4 or 5 people going and said, you do this part, you do 100. If everybody does 100, we've got 500, So we can try to organize this and just get these people who want to participate but aren't going to be doing the modeling work. Like, hey, you want to participate? Come, and you already quantify, so just bucket these things based on these categories. So Shawn, what do we need? So do we need to assign a number or something to these categories that Angela and I have created, and how in order to do these groupings? Would we put a code or?
That could just be done. If it's needed, it could just be done on the data science side, on the fly. So it's not super important. But yeah, it might help.
How would we actually do it? We have, I don't know if you can, I'll share screen. If you can look at the spreadsheet really quick in Octopus, you can see how we have these categories here. So would it be better to group them by a word and a high level category? And even what would be the best way to do that? TE research, or to put the number 16 as representing that it could be all of these different things,
You can do it either way as long as you are completely consistent. If you do it as words, we can easily recast it to a different formulation.
Better words. Okay. So doing the highest level category?
No, I'm just saying that whether you do it as a specific word or as a number doesn't matter, as long as you always use exactly the same word written exactly the same way.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a key. You think it's a key? Jess, I know you were doing the data science intro courses, so you know the Python dictionary, right? Key
Yes,
value.
the back of my hand.
Yes.
No, I'm kidding. Yeah, that's why I was just wondering. Would there be more mistakes doing it, by word, that they're not exact?
I think if you go ahead and add a code, a number code for each one right now, it's not going to hurt, and it'll probably help. So.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. And also, these higher level categories can represent many things. So we have this kind of guide here of what these things can include. Okay, we'll see, I guess. Okay. Anything else? Do we want to?
Can you link that spreadsheet in the top of the HackMD file?
Oh, that it's in the top. Okay, sure.
Or is it at the bottom?
What do you want me to call this? Category list.
Awesome.
Categories list. Okay. Yeah. Shall we end 10 minutes early?
Yeah, so
I know I have another call and I haven't had really a break.
I'm happy with that. I'll just give an update. So I made there's a pretty clean notebook here. It's the word count and word cloud. So maybe I don't need to print all that here, but yeah, I'll just finish cleaning this up and I'll push it. And it's a nice little example of a mini data science project. This was pretty easy to make. Maybe someone will get inspired by it and expand it a little bit, or use the outputs. So for example, I get all of the concatenated praises together, and I get the word count list, both of which I've posted in the Params channel. And this can output a word cloud, and someone might want to tinker with this a little bit more to make it a bit prettier or modify it. But yeah, this could be cool for a blog post or something.
Yeah,
That's exactly. I was actually thinking about that when I saw your list.
Awesome.
Simulator spreading. Interesting. Cool. So yeah, Sunday, shall we pick a time? Not ideal to be working on Sundays, but that's how we're going. But Griff said he wants to join, so maybe he can help us a little more with like this categorization, and he can rally the people to help us to do the groupings. The bucketing. So he said anytime except 8 CET. So I don't know, Angela, what would be like the latest you'd want to go?
If it's not 8 CST, then 9. But this is
9. That's quite late though to go 9 to 11. Or would you want to go earlier? Like,
actually for
what would be the
Sunday, I
earliest?
prefer to have it late.
Late, yeah. 9 is 3 hour time. Okay, so shall we say 9 till 11, which Shawn, that would be 3. That's 12 your time.
Yeah, perfect.
That's okay?
Yep.
Okay. So meantime, I'll tell Griff and tell him we need some people that are going to be like hands-on bucketing things. And if he has any questions, I'll tell him to ask in Params channel, like how best to do that for data purposes.
And
I'll ask him when's the next praise quant, and
we lost Octopus. We lost Octopus, but
we lost him.
I just made a stub. I just started looking into the language embedding using doc2vec, but it's just kind of a starter, so we can pick that up on Sunday.
Okay.
Great.
Sounds like a plan.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Excited to see the outcome.
Yeah.
This was really cool. Even though at the moment it looks like a mess, but excited for the outcome.
Yeah, this was really fun.
Yeah, I so appreciate you, Angela and Shawn and Jeff. We're gonna do it. It just feels like a lot on top of all the other work and things.
Sure.
I feel I'm gonna take. I think we're gonna take a week off here soon to recharge. But I'll keep pushing forward. Your all's presence definitely makes it a very lovely time, and I enjoy it. If you guys weren't here, it might be a lot more challenging. So thank you. Thanks for
Jess,
working together.
for drumming this up.
Yes.
Okay. See you on Sunday then.
Alrighty. Okay, have a great week.
Yes.
You too.
Thanks all.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Dude.